a big change actually in marijuana policy handed down by the Biden administration. Health and Human Secretary Javier Becerra saying this on Wednesday. I can now share that following the data and science at HHS Gov has reported to POTUS's directive to me for the department to provide a scheduling recommendation for marijuana to the DEA. We've worked to ensure that a scientific evaluation be completed and shared expeditiously. And so to put that in lay people's terms, we will say that this is the best way to explain it. Specifically, and this is Jennifer Peltz at AP, the Federal Health and Human Services Department has recommended taking marijuana out of a category of drugs deemed to have, quote, no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. The agency advised moving pot from the Schedule 1 group to the less tightly regulated Schedule 3. The Schedule 3 drugs have a potential for abuse less than substances in Schedule 1 or 2, and abuse may lead to moderate or low physical dependence or high psychological dependence on those drugs. So, so marijuana now classified the same way as heroin, as ecstasy, as quaaludes, as LSD, all of those drugs that we know quite well. And the change in scheduling here, skipping Schedule 2, by the way, going right from 1 to 3, would still keep weed as a controlled substance, but some would be the same in group as ketamine, anabolic steroids, and some acetaminophen codeine combinations. While not legalizing the drug recreationally, federal government not doing that, this move would help reduce or potentially eliminate criminal penalties for possession. This would help to reduce or eliminate criminal penalties for possession, which we can talk about that a little bit. Schedule 3 drugs are subject to various rules that allow for some medical uses and for federal criminal prosecution of anyone who traffics in the drugs without permission, even under marijuana's current Schedule 1 status. Federal prosecution for simply possessing it are few. There were 145 federal sentencings in fiscal year 2021 for that crime, and as of 2022, no defendants were in prison for it. But most importantly, I think this is big for marijuana research, and that's what a lot of people have been fighting for: the ability to research its medical help. So because marijuana is Schedule 1, it's been very difficult to conduct authorized clinical studies that involve administering the drug. That has created something of a catch-22. Calls for more research, but barriers to doing it. Some scientists sometimes rely instead on people's own reports of their marijuana use, and we know how valuable those can be, Jake.
Yeah, so look, guys, this is great news. Is it the end all be all? No. Let me explain important nuances here and say it is a little bit incremental, which is very Democratic, very Joe Biden. On the other hand, it is exactly what Joe Biden promised. So number one, moving it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 is a very good beginning, because then you could do research on it, and it affects them in terms of taxes, and it makes the businesses a lot more viable, because otherwise they couldn't deduct very normal costs like the cost of rent, etc., which is totally unfair. Every other business can, but they couldn't. So that moving into Schedule 3 takes care of that as well. But they still cannot use the banking system because it is still technically illegal under federal law. And so that's their number one concern. And by the way, that's what leads to more crime, because then they have to deal with cash. And then when everyone in the planet knows they've got a lot of cash in the building, it creates huge security issues. So they've got to move away from that too. So the bottom line is it's still illegal at the federal level, and you can still be put in prison. As you saw there, it doesn't happen very often anymore, and Biden did a good job of pardoning some folks that were unjustly in prison there. Michael actually did a story for us a number of years back about one of the guys who was unjustly in prison. He was selling legal marijuana in California, and the feds didn't like a rap video he made, and so they put him in prison. And so that's still possible under this law. But to be fair to Joe Biden, he didn't say that he would deschedule marijuana. He said he would reschedule. He would move it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. I don't think that's nearly enough. We nearly did a petition to do this, but we decided not to when we talked to almost every activist in the field who said moving into just Schedule 3 doesn't help that much. It really needs to be completely descheduled entirely. And so that's why we didn't bother doing a campaign on it. But Biden's promise was not to take it off the list. His promise was to do exactly this, so he's delivering on that, and so you got to give him credit for it.
You know, I think it's interesting when you hear like all of the stuff you can and can't do with regards to marijuana. It just feels like they're the only ones that can do it. Everybody else is in trouble for doing what they're making money off of it. They are the biggest drug dealers. These are my views, not the views of anybody else. I feel like the biggest drug dealers are the ones that we see assembling themselves in government and these corporations. But I cry for the people who have been in jail for a very long time because of these charges. So I look forward to any steps that we take. All the Black and brown people that come from the communities that I come from that have been incarcerated and held, and so now they want props because they let some people go and they got a few people out. And look, guys, look what we're doing. I just think, good. I hope so, because I know a lot of people who health-wise have benefited from these studies that have to do with marijuana, especially in easing pain and agony and misery that they're dealing with daily when they are dealing with severe illnesses. So I don't give props to the government for doing stuff that they're supposed to be doing. I'm just sitting over here thinking like it's about time.
Well, I do think right. It is about time, but whenever that time comes, Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Bill. It should have happened years and years before. When he pushed it through, said he was going to do it, it was done. Props to Lyndon Johnson. So I think that and I'm not equating the two, obviously, but this is, as Cenk said, something that Biden promised. And one of the other parts of this is, and I think we talked about it, and it's not lost on anyone, but it deserves reiteration, is that it can't be descheduled without going to Schedule 3, meaning that the research has to happen to support taking it off the schedule entirely. And this facilitating of that research and the science will undoubtedly, and the way that things are trending, and that's the biggest part of it, is you get momentum in a direction for any kind of change. It's clearly going in that direction, whether it's incremental or not. This is what has to happen according to government standards. And they also are going to be doing research on something they haven't been able to research. And that, to me, is quite important in this whole thing. And so it resonates with people. It resonates on Capitol Hill. Here's Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. He responded with high hopes about this in talking about HHS. He said HHS has done the right thing. The DEA should now follow through on this important step to greatly reduce the harm caused by draconian marijuana laws. And those laws have been on the books, but changing them is part of the process of making things better. And more to the Biden administration on things that are kind of wedge issue-y, and guns. The Biden administration seems to be trying to make an impression on voters, both with marijuana, and they also supported a new gun safety law just yesterday. The Biden administration on Thursday proposed a rule intended to require people selling firearms at gun shows and on the internet to conduct background checks on potential buyers in an effort to curb the so-called gun show loophole. And to that point, you had a foreign national in North Carolina who they don't know how he got his gun as a foreign national, but presumably at a gun show because he was able to, and he's the man who killed his professor at UNC earlier this week. Under this new rule unveiled by the Justice Department, some private sellers may no longer fall within the background check exception, with the department saying the guidance identifies examples of conduct that would in certain circumstances be presumed to qualify as engaging in the business of dealing in firearms, and thus to require a federal firearms license, which would mean the seller must run background checks ahead of sales. So in one fell swoop, or in two tiny swoops, you have the president fulfilling a promise on changing the schedule of marijuana and closing the gun show loophole. And this, heading into an election year, is good stuff for an administration.
Yeah, so this one is even smaller than the rescheduling of marijuana, but hey, it's better than nothing. Unfortunately, sometimes Democratic Party's slogan appears to be better than nothing, but it is. The Republicans would go in the opposite direction.
Quite big, Cenk. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but closing the gun show loophole has been something that the people who have been fighting against guns for quite a long time have said they want to do. They've been pushed back. They haven't been able to get people on board. Now you have a White House doing it. I think that's bigger than you're giving it credit for being.
Universal background checks polls at 97%. This is
exactly.
They haven't done that. This is under that. I hear you. I'm saying it's better than nothing, and it's this literally the smallest thing we could ask for, but it got done, which it wouldn't have gotten done under a Republican. They would have gone in the wrong direction. So look, and descheduling, I would have done it on day one, but Biden is a cautious guy. He's a very, very, very slow guy, very incremental, pretty conservative. But hey, he's headed in the direction of taking actions. So I don't want to poo-poo all of this. What I want to tell you is it really is better than nothing. It really is some degree of progress. Is it as much progress as we want? No, but hey, he's up and at him and he's doing things, even though there's a Republican House. Okay, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it. Last thing for me is why? Why is he doing this? Especially on the marijuana issue. Is it because he made a promise and so he's an honest guy that sticks to his promises? No, he also made a promise about the public option and he didn't do a goddamn thing about it. And I could list you another dozen things that he promised and didn't do anything about. Now there's two reasons why they're moving on marijuana. One is they saw that young voters made all the difference in the 2020 election and 2022 election. They're like, well, what do young people like? Oh, they like marijuana. We found out, they liked it 20 years ago? Oh, I didn't know that. So they're finally moving on that. And then second of all, now that marijuana's turned into a business with 38 states having legalized it, now they have power. And those businesses can hire lobbyists. And the minute you're a business, you're in business in Washington. So those two things have combined to move marijuana to Schedule 3. And don't worry, guys, it'll soon be perfectly legal and they'll deschedule it completely because those businesses now, especially with being treated as a normal business and they can take the tax deductions, will make more and more money and they will spend some of it lobbying and then they'll get exactly what they want.
Yeah, and I would dare to say that the person who went on the Breakfast Club and said that if you don't vote for him, you're not a black person, probably thinks that he's picking up a few votes within people of color as well when it comes to marijuana, being that you could say that in a public setting when you're talking about people of color. And Michael, I agree with you. I think steps forward are steps forward, and I believe that we should be, relieved. I mean, not happy, but relieved that we're taking some steps forward because a lot of people are suffering. I had a grandmother who died of cancer who could have used some alleviating on her way while she transitioned. And I think that it was important. She didn't have access and wouldn't have access because she didn't have privilege and she didn't have access. But I think, I think we have to be able to hold our government accountable. I don't want to live in a cynical state constantly. So I do believe that taking a step forward, but understanding why these people are doing these things and why they happen when the elections are rolling around, and then when the elections are not rolling around, the people stay in suffering. It's just, we want change. And big props to the young people who are really pushing these movements and are making themselves seen by showing up and voting and making a difference, because I think we got to give them credit for showing up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got to say one last thing. So look, our job is honest reporting. So I'm giving you the full context, right? Of what he promised, what he didn't promise, what we can do, what we can't do. The only thing that bothers me is when news organizations call that gun bill or the gun action major gun reform. And I saw that in a number of articles. Bring it down with major reform. Now, having said that, this story is not a net negative. Like, people usually just put whatever lens they want on it. And if you hate Biden, you want to say it's not enough, so it's a net negative. No, this is a net positive. He has moved us in the right direction. We would like to go further in that direction. And it's not just us, it's the great majority of the American people, both on marijuana and guns. And we wish they would move faster. But overall today, definitely a good day. And I'm glad that they are taking positive action going forward on these issues.
I'll take the last word, which is closing the gun show loophole is major. And now we can go to a break if that's what we want to do, Jen, but I just needed the last word there.
Okay, God bless.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, this ad. Still, hit the join button below.